hutan selimutan aku. Kau suka membahara di bawah naunganmu. Kau kasih sampaikan maksudmu. God bless orang Papua, God bless tanah Papua selamanya. Tuhan Yesus memberkati. Amin.
Okay. Hello and welcome. What you've heard just now is a song called Hai Tanaku Papua or My Land Papua, which is West Papua's national anthem. If you've read the lyrics, it basically describes the beauty of West Papua. But yet, amazingly, this song, along with West Papua's this one, Morning Star flag, are considered separatist symbols by the Indonesian government. As for why, we'll find out in the next hour or so. So that musical performance, by the way, was performed by a young Papuan musician, Christian. So terima kasih banyak, Christian, for sending us that wonderful song. And I hope you are joining us today. And thank you to everyone who are with us today on Facebook live stream or here in the Zoom room. So you are tuned in to the first episode of the webinar series, which is part of our Solidarity Month for West Papua that was launched by the International League of People's Struggles, Asia Pacific Chapter, the International Indigenous Peoples Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation, and the Merdeka West Papua Support Network, which I am a part of. So my name is Diwa and I will be the host for today's episode. The ILPS is a global alliance of anti-imperialist formations, while the IPMSDL is also a global platform of indigenous peoples organizations, communities, and advocates of the right to self-determination and liberation. And the Merdeka West Papua Support Network was co-founded by these two formations, specifically for its work on supporting the self-determination struggle of West Papua. So through this Solidarity Month, we hope to contribute to keeping the conversations on West Papua rolling on a global scale, on an international scale. So for those who are hearing about West Papua for the first time, grab a seat. This educational discussion is especially for you. We'll be revisiting Papua's history today, a history that is told from the Papuan people's perspective, in contrast to the mainstream narrative in Indonesia's history books that is often, if not always, missing a lot of pages in relation to West Papua occupation. So we had already a couple of questions that came in the past few days, and we'll try to accommodate as much as we can within this 1 hour or 1 hour 15-minute program. But if there are any left unanswered by the end of our session, we'll get back to it on the next episode. So don't worry, this is only the first. Before we start, again, I would like to announce that this webinar is also streaming on the Facebook pages of the IPMSDL and the ILPS Asia Pacific, in case you are not able to access here in Zoom. So let's get right to it. To our first presenter, Mr. Leo Imbiri is the Secretary General of the Papuan Customary Council, or the Dewan Adat Papua. This organization was founded to promote the basic rights of indigenous peoples in West Papua. So Pak Leo will be introducing us to the land and people of West Papua. So Pak Leo, please take us to West Papua.
Thank you very much, Diva, for giving me this opportunity. Selamat malam, Pak Kakak Otto, and also selamat siang, Rosa. I was asked to give a presentation on land and people and the current situation in West Papua. When we talking about, so when we're talking about West Papua, we come a little bit on the history of West Papua, especially about the division of this land. In 1848, Dutch, British, and Germany informally divided up this land into West and Eastern. And New Guinea, or the western part of this New Guinea land, is the second biggest island in the world after Greenland. And the area is about 780,000 and 753 kilometers square. West Papua has shared border with Papua New Guinea in the east, Moluccas Islands in the west, Australia in the south, and Pacific Ocean in the north. West Papua area consists of 119,888.32 kilometers square. In the second picture, you will see that the names were given to West Papua is Netherlands, New Guinea. That's New Guinea, West Papua, Irian Barat, Irian Jaya, and the last is Papua. And later in 1999 and 2003, this land was divided into two provinces, Papua and West Papua provinces. And this land by Papua indigenous people in the second Papuan Regional Customary Council Assembly, we divided this land into 7 traditional or customary land boundaries. The first one we called Tabi or Mamta Regency. The second is Saireri Traditional Regency. The third is Doberai. The fourth is Bomberai, Animha, Lapago, and the last is Mepago. West Papua consists mostly on 2 climates permanently. One is in the coastal area. We have daily temperature only around 32 to 35 degrees centigrade. But in the highlands, like in Jaya Vijaya, Lani Jaya, and Duga, we have a temperature about 16 to 28 degrees centigrade. The most extreme are in Lani, Jaya, and Duga. It could go down to 8 to 9 degrees centigrade. West Papua is one of the best place to have to visit and to enjoy this beautiful island with a beautiful climate. West Papua, there is one of the area rich with natural resources. We have a grassberg mining gold company, is the largest in the world. and it reached 67.4 billion ounces. According to the data in 2018, Freeport produced 6,065 tons of concentrate every day, divided into 26.5% of copper, 39.33 grams of gold, and 70.37 grams of silver. West Papua also have gas, oil, limestone, and clay. We have about 500 billion cubic meters natural gas reserved in this land, from this land. West Papua also, one of the still existing natural forests in the world. We have 33 billion 710,523.22 hectares of the natural forest. We have mangrove. From this forest, we have mangrove, especially in West Papua province, is 438,252 hectares. West Papua also one of the area that rich of biodiversity. According to Conservation International report in 1999, there are 650 types of bird in West Papua, and they are most unique, and there are 50 most unique endemic protected bird. Just mention few of them. We have a paradise bird. You can see one of this picture is a paradise bird. We also have a black-winged parrot. We also have Customary, Maleo Waigeo, Maleo Kamur, Perling Papua, Kebakap Biak, and Bondol Arfa. We only not have reached in our in the land, but also in the ocean. According to the report of Conservation International Natural Conservancy Oceanography Institute and LIPI, there are more than 540 types of hard corals, 1,000 species of reef fish, 700 types of mollusca. This only in Raja Ampat makes 70% of the world's coral. Sorry. We have in West Papua also we have some endemic or rare plant. Just mention few of them. 9 of them is what we call buah merah, red fruit, robin bai, matoa, bintangur, pisang, Papua black orchid, iron orchid, ant's nest orchid, strawberry. That is, we are not rich only in biodiversity, but we are also rich in cultural diversity. Papua indigenous people consist of more than 253 tribes, and they are split into 7 customary regencies. We recognize 4 types of traditional leadership in Papua. We have big men in the highlands. We have kingship in the west and in the south. We have north in the west, and we have heroes or mixed-up leadership in the north. In this picture, you will see the beautiful traditional customs and performance from West Papua indigenous peoples. But we are still facing the current situation. Although West Papua already getting special autonomy law for almost 20 years, and it will be the money will be end next year, 2021. But we are still facing continuing conflict happen in West Papua, and until now, 2020, especially in Duga, in Tanjaya, Mamberamo, Timika, and other places in Papua. And it was reported by humanitarian team formed by Duga Regency government that for Duga case, there are 182 refugees died because of the conflict. There are still high of human rights violations happen in this land. The second is we are continuing facing legal and illegal operation mining in West Papua. We still have Freeport mining companies. We still have British, and also there are several oil palm plantations growing up in West Papua still operate. And we are facing also growing degradation of our natural forests and our natural biodiversity and our culture. West Papuans still facing racial discriminations and also not, it's happened with our students in Surabaya, in Java, but also happened in judicial process like in Balikpapan with 7 prisoners, and also with other prisoners in some places in West Papua and in Jakarta. We are also facing marginalization. If you see if you come to West Papua and going to from airport, Sentani Airport to Jayapura City, you will find that now there are many new buildings coming up, and West Papuan just behind that building. And those buildings called Rumah Toko, and it is it belongs to non-Papuans. In the election in 2019, we found that in some district parliament, the non-Papuan become the majority on this parliament. I just mentioned one of that is in Timika. We have 7 members of parliament coming from Toraja. West Papua people also facing what we call the populations. If you see this diagram, it shows that in 1970, West Papuan people is 887,000 peoples, and the migrants is only 36,000. But if you see in 2010, the non-Papuan is growing up bigger than West Papuan, and we are estimate that in 2020 up, we will become, or we already and will become minority and extinct in our land. So there are some of my presentations. Thank you very much, Tabea. My kaifea ide uninam wa. Thank you, Diva.
Thank you very much, Pa Leo. It's astonishing to see or learn of such abundance in West Papua, not only in terms of the natural resources, but also the rich cultural resources. I mean, just like any other indigenous people's territory in the world. But sadly, we also saw how most of these resources are already under the possession of private corporations, and a lot of sacred and cultural lands and identities have been lost because of this occupation. So I guess the question now is what exactly happened that led to this, and what is maintaining this kind of setup, this condition of West Papua today. But before anything else, bagi teman-teman yang berada di Zoom, silakan pilih terjemahan bahasa Indonesia di bawah screen. So please, Pak Octo, if you could tell us just that, the history of West Papua, rewind us a bit to what happened in the early 50s or 60s.
Okay, so thank you again for these opportunities. Many of those who I was asking to talk about the history, and last time when I another conversation, I gave two paper more details. So that's in Merdeka as a secretariat. So those of you who would like to know more detail, you can check in that website. But today, I just make a couple of bullet point here. When we talk about West Papua, we have to be aware that we are talking about a nation that was colonized by three colonial powers and still fight for independence. The first, the Dutch, for 62 years, from 1898 until 1942. Then they were kicked out by the Japanese. Japan occupied West Papua 2 years, from 1942 to 1944. And then Dutch returned and colonized again Papua from 1944 to 1962. And Indonesia took over from Dutch in May 1st, 1963, and still continue to be the colonial power today for 57 years. In the Dutch era, when Indonesia became independent of the Dutch in 1945, the Dutch turned their attention to the West Papua between the years of 1944 to 1963. So basically, before that year, West Papua was more or less like a missionary's land. The government, only few here and there. So Papuans really doesn't experience the colonial exploitation like experience on those years. And during the years of 1948 to 1962, Indonesia and Netherlands fought over West Papua in international forum, who supposed to colonize West Papua. In the 1950s, the Dutch established the local government, schools, hospitals, military, and police. Additionally, they trained public servants and allow for the formation of political parties and conducted election for member of a parliament. By the end for 1950s, Dutch politics in Netherlands was also controlled by the right wing. That change in Netherlands gave implication to West Papua in their colonial part of. They fully supported the West Papua expression for self-determination, especially after Indonesia took over all of the Dutch company holdings in Indonesia in 1957. So because of their fighting each other, Indonesia decided to just take over the whole this company. So right-wing group, they really get angry. They said there is no discussion with Indonesia, just support Papuans' right for self-determination. And
In line with that right-wing policy in Netherlands, the Dutch allow in West Papua to introduce national symbols on December 1st, 1961. US involvement. In the US, before Kennedy administration, there are two groups of opinion regarding policy on West Papua. One opinion said the Dutch believe where Papuans are given the right for self-determination. The other opinion only focus on how to cut communism and economic interest, which means support for Indonesia. And all these two opinions, they didn't put the West Papua people's right. So they treated Papua as empty land, and they call Papuans primitive. And so they just thinking about like they're selling cow or pork in the market. So under the John F. Kennedy's administration, the US decided to support Indonesia and pressure the Dutch to hand over West Papua. Suharto, who became Indonesian president during this time with the full support of US, gave permission to Freeport, the largest US gold company, to begin mining in West Papua via contract signing in 1967, 2 years before Papuan exercised act of free choice, what we call act of no choice in 1969. Some scholar who wrote Greg Paul Grain, for example, quote Luns saying that the US was angry to Netherlands because when the US company tried to dig gold and ask if they can share with the Dutch reject. So from the beginning, the US is mining Freeport, it's already involved behind the scene to dig the mining because they lost a couple of mining in many other parts of the world, and they want to do whatever it takes to take that mountains of gold in West Papua. There are some research showing that they also supporting the when the Indonesia take over presidency from Sukarno to Suharto, because under Sukarno they can't exploit the mining. Both Dutch and US already knew that act of no choice would be just a sham, because the decision that Indonesia would colonize the West Papua was already made through the New York Agreement that in August 15, 1963. This is why the Dutch did nothing at the UN, witnessing all manipulation since May 1st, 1963, through implementation of a New York Agreement. US President, in a day of when Papuans exercised their right for self-determination, US President brought all journalists with him on visit to Southeast Asia. July 26 to Philippines, July 27 to Indonesia, and July 28 to Thailand. In the same day when Papuans exercised their right to no choice, by doing so, only handful of journalists covered the act, and no attention was given by the international media. And then the Dutch also same things. When the issue was brought back to UN, they didn't protest. of the manipulation. They didn't even vote with the African countries who oppose the act of no choice. Now the Papuan position. Papuans have never been a part of Indonesian history. Papuans never participated in preparation for Indonesian Independence Day on August 17 of 1945. Some Indonesian leaders such as Muhammad Hatta, among very, very few of Indonesian leaders who have experienced living in West Papua, who he spent sometimes in a Dutch prison there, defending the Papuans' right to be independent like Indonesia. Of course, he was lost in a vote, but the number of those support him also almost half of vote. While the Dutch and Indonesia fought over who would colonize West Papua in 1948 through 1962, Papuans were preparing for independence. And so that is why there is no historical background that Papua being part of Indonesia. According to Western colonial in South Pacific in those days, who formed South Pacific Community, now is Pacific Island Forum. West Papua should be the first country get independence from the Dutch, then followed by Samoa. After Papua was betrayed by the West through this act of no choice in 1969, the OPM, the Organisasi Papua Merdeka, Papua Freedom Movement, declared Papua as independent nation on July 1st, 1971. And since then they has defended consistently through guerrilla warfare. In 2000, the Papuan conduct the Second National Congress in Jayapura, capital city of Papua, attended by thousands with the funding from Indonesian president at that time, late Abdul Rahman Wahid. In this meeting, Papuan reject the New York Agreement, which has become a base for how Papua was transferred from Dutch to Indonesia, stating Papua is a different nation, an independent nation. And at this Congress, Papua made a commitment or resolution to gain her sovereignty back through the peaceful means, such as dialogue with Indonesia and mediated by an international third party. Now, Indonesian colonization. Indonesia has stated that their intention from beginning is for Papuans' land only. They do not care about Papuans' people. Ali Murtopo, who assigned by President Suharto to conduct special operation Opsus, Operasi Khusus, in 1967, was saying that if Papuan would like to island, then you can ask Lord, who knows, he can prepare some island, empty island in Pacific, or ask US who just landing, in the moon, they might find you place there, but this land is ours. So this intention of Indonesian colonization is from the beginning when they started in 1967. One of the member of Papuan, the MP Dewan Majelis Papua, the 1,025 people who were chosen by Indonesian, give a testimony about what the Ali Murtopo said in 1967. So therefore, the Indonesian colonial policy in West Papua is geared toward fulfilling the quote unquote holy colonial mission, which is wipe out indigenous Papuan people, control the land, and exploit its natural resources. In order to do that, the first thing Indonesia did is the creation of a military operation. So West Papua has always been military operation zone. More than 30 maybe military operation. And this is also the biggest number of military apparatus base compared to all other part of Indonesia. Some academic research said compare the one person Papuans guard by like the 10 military personnel compared to the number in population, which is less than 2,500,000 Papuans indigenous today. The second was to repopulate Papua with Indonesian through many national programs, such as Transmigration. So Transmigration was actually, from the beginning, was part of a takeover West Papua declared by President Sukarno. The Office of Transmigration and this mobilization of Papuan Indonesian were the same. So all the intention of a transmigration is really colonization from the history, and it's still going on up till today. There are different form, different approach, but they all trying to fill up West Papua. In the beginning was part of this Operasi Khusus, and then in 1980s under Minister Martono, that's the very high speed million, hundreds and thousands of poor farmers sent to West Papua. And the policy by the governor of West Papua to the transmigrant policy, actually, they all reject this, but there's nothing they can do to stop it. The third, next, the way of filling up the West Papua is by creating a story that West Papua has a lot of resources, a lot of rich, a lot of money out of the special autonomies. So there are so many spontaneous migrants coming to West Papua. The third way of Indonesian wiping out policy is they come up with the creating a new regencies to control Papua with, or flooding Papua with Indonesian civil servant, police, and military personnel. So in 1999, for example, only 9 regencies and 1 province. Today we have 2 province, and I don't know, Leo and Rosa can give a number. I think it's about 30 regencies and 2 province, 2 military command line and police command line. Used to be only 1. That's how they create extending regencies. By extending regencies, they build up roads, and then they will then invite all these spontaneous migrants to open up stores in that road and market. That's how they colonize West Papua. In order to generate Papuan and international support for their colonial policy. Indonesia declared Papua and be known as a special autonomous province. The first one was given in 1969 and then 2001. These two special autonomy are different in form. One in 1969 was given by Indonesia, but in implementation, really there is no significant change. And the 2001 special autonomy, actually it was initiated and fighting by Papuans. So the draft was drafted by Papuans. The title of the draft was Special Autonomy in West Papua in form of self-governed territory. But and then elaborate very very good draft to empower local governments and empower the people of West Papua to govern the island. But Jakarta cut it off, all the contents, and then they just give back with the draft that they like it. But then in implementation, the special the autonomy is also not implemented well, and Jakarta block all the important points, contrary to what they agree in that bill. And so the situation in West Papua is never changed. Getting many human rights organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, as well as many other international solidarity groups such as International Coalition on West Papua, and many other groups have recorded that the life of Papuans, people under Indonesian colonialism, will never change. Their report can be easy access through their website, or just through the simple Google search. There are at least 3 reports regarding genocide in West Papua. 2 are academic reports have been done by Yale University and Sydney University. And then the other one by Asian Human Rights Commission published in report about the 1977 and 78 case, detailed with the names and village and of the victims. These are just the recorded one. So many other cases, but all of this because of there's no independent human rights group that are allowed to conduct the human rights assessment. So many are not published. Since the beginning of Papua, Indonesian colonial powers have used so many methods to wipe out Papuans people. As I said earlier, military operation, ignorant policy. Ignorant policy, I mean here is, if there is a disease that's spread in one village or one area, the government really ignore it so that more people die out. Or if a drought, the government react very, very slow with so many arguments, alibi they use. And then another form is the intentional spread of a particular infectious disease such as HIV. This disease was intentionally spread to West Papua through sex workers, were brought by Indonesian military to villages, and then spread all over. and this is killed a lot of people up till today. And in West Papua is the highest HIV in national. Therefore, Papua do not see any future with Indonesia. The independence is the only way for Papuans for survival. I still remember when Thomas Bianau, as the speaker of the 100 Papuan representative who met with the in Jakarta on February 26, 1999, with Indonesian President B.J. Habibie. He was accompanied by his entire cabinet. In that meeting, Mr. Bernal said, "Mr. President, please allow us to be free before we become extinct from our land."